From the heartland of America and the gateway to the West, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever the hell you may be. Broadcasting from an abandoned bunker under second base, surrounded by corn and ghosts. This is Don't You Know? I'm your host, Lyle Tyson, along with Kyle Ganson, Aaron Birds, and the coach, Paul Cleary. How you guys doing?
Doing great.
Good, Lyle. How are you?
Good.
Glad to be here.
Kyle, how was your week?
Oh man, it was great. I tell you, just winding up March Madness here. We got going to kick off a big month for us. Conference basketball tournament's going to be gearing up here this upcoming weekend, and I tell you what, I'm getting all jacked up. You started off with state wrestling, now you got district basketball winding up and state tournaments for high school basketball. So it's a great time to be me, and busy week. I had the joy of help setting up that main event, that show choir concert down at the high school. So that was a pretty big production down there. I tell you what, those things are traveling cities, man. They provide 2 meals, and it's been a big week down at the high school, but we're, like I said, gearing up for March and ready to talk to the old coach here and get some insight on high school wrestling.
Yeah, and just going back on that, Iowa ladies had their last home game today too, so I mean, it's just a funny time of the year, wrestling and March Madness and everything else. What about you, Aaron?
We were on vacation, and so we're just getting back in the groove of things. We had a tournament in Cedar Falls, and we went to Madison for a tournament, went to Mexico for a week, and then tournament in Rockford. So we just got home a little bit ago. So the last 12 days have been busy. So glad to be back, though.
All right. So we got in studio today Coach Paul Cleary of the Bobcats. Paul, a little bio on your growing up and high school and college and wrestling.
Well, I grew up in El Paso, Illinois, so it's about 3 hours away in between Bloomington and Peoria. And my father ran the kids club in a pretty similar fashion to our beloved Danny Gatto, who was our youth coach for 30 plus years. And so it was kind of all about the families and the community, and used to carpool, 10, 20 cars to a tournament, whatnot. And then wrestled in high school. My brother was 4 years older than me, and I had an older sister too who did not wrestle. That wasn't a thing back then. And then after high school, I went to Loris, where my brother and sister also went. And then I never left.
You're in Dubuque County, and that's how it is, huh?
Now I'm a Dubuquer, so
yeah,
I haven't gone too far.
Yeah. So how long you been the head coach at West Dubuque then?
It's a good question. I think 13 years maybe.
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah, 12, 13, 14 years, somewhere in that. I don't know. It all blends together after a couple of years.
Yeah.
But 13 good years, and been teaching for 21 and coaching for 22 total, because I was at Loris for a year before I came to West Dubuque.
Wow.
I guess one thing I think a lot of our listeners want to know, like, what weight did you wrestle back in high school?
So it's funny, we were talking about that at state, and talking about Brady Rissman's last weigh-in at 150. And I said, I remember taking a picture when I wrestled 165 as a freshman. I couldn't beat the guy at 174. And so the path to a starting spot, as most wrestling families know, this is how it works. Sometimes you got to go down. And so I took a picture when the last time I weighed 165, and I just found the picture actually yesterday. So some of the guys wanted to see that, but I was 165. Then I was 184 my last 3 years. So yeah. And then I told Kellen McKenna, I'm like, you and I would have been workout partners, same age, because I was 130 pounds as a freshman. And they just look at me like that's crazy. But yeah, we all know the pounds they just kind of get added on as we keep aging. That's a problem for us. At least it is for me.
Meat and potatoes. That's how it is.
No, it's interesting. Like, just some of the commitment of some of these guys, right? Like, just got to find that spot. And what you've seen at 150 this year was a guy who knew he needed to fill a hole there, and he worked his butt off to maintain that weight. And it's impressive. I tell you what, it's a commitment, and it's a sport like no other from an outsider's perspective.
Well, I think what sums up our season is resilience and grit as a team and in individuals, across the board from top to bottom. All the guys and our managers and the whole support staff. I mean, you start thinking about what goes into a season. It's the 20 managers that do all the behind the scenes work. It's Brenna Penner, who's organizing all sorts of stuff and who's going all these different directions and helping things in practice and helping the youth tournament, into the coaching staff who are unsung heroes and the volunteers who are donating time, money, and their bodies for the benefit of our guys, and all the coaching wives who give up their husbands for 3 months. They don't see them and they're raising kids on their own and everything else. So it's an operation that goes into it. And then the families, what they're doing the laundry and making the special diets and supporting their kids through hard times, the good times and the bad. So, it is a pretty special thing, and I'm proud to be associated with it.
Walk us through a typical week's practice. I mean, what does it look like for some of our listeners that don't know?
So practice, Mondays is kind of a medium day. There's always a technique system that you're going to. You never want practice to be boring, so you try and change it up. And then usually on the bus rides home, you're talking about technical focuses that you have to get better at. You need to be better on high C defense or single defense, or we're not very good on top, we're not very good on bottom. There's always an area to improve. And so then as a coaching staff, you brainstorm who's going to work on what, or like I'm not very good at, let's say, chicken wing defense. That's kind of a Kirkbride thing, or I can't show a chicken wing to save my life, and that's a Manning thing. So we all kind of know where each other are good at. Sam Schuler's good at the leg passes and that type of stuff. But in terms of intensity, Monday's a medium day. There's technique and drilling. There's always an area to get better at technically. And for people who don't know wrestling, it's like a crazy martial art. It's really simple, but it's very complicated. There's a million moves and they can all work. And so you have to be well versed in to stop the highest percentage techniques from the opposition you're going to see, while also wanting to do your stuff. And then, like, I've been coaching long enough. I know if you're wrestling Clinton, they're going to cradle. Linmar's going to chicken wing. If you're wrestling Hempstead, they're really good at leg passes. So then you're trying to get ready for certain technical areas each week, by also getting better at what you want to do. And so that's a really interesting philosophy when you get into, do you try and stop their best move, or you try and just work on yours? But intensity, that's Monday. Monday's a 2-hour practice, 320 to 520. Tuesday is heavier. Usually that's 18 minutes of live for us. And you change up how you do live wrestling. It might be 3-man groups. It might be matches, it might be situations, and it depends on how many kids you have in the room, because our room is made for about 40 kids. And this year we had I think we finished with 46. We really didn't have any quitters this year. We had 2 kids get injured that didn't return, so I'm really proud of that. That speaks volumes to the program and the kids, which is good. But Tuesdays is more intense, more live, as Tom Brands would say, trying to stretch them, making sure they're prepared to go hard on Thursday and Saturday. And then Wednesday is usually a 1-hour drill. Typically that's in the morning because of the professional development schedule. The guys, they don't want to go home and then come back. They would rather just come in and get the workout out of the way. And then if some of the guys want to work out again, they can after school, and get that done with the girls are sometimes going after. They'll get a workout on their own someplace. And so that's usually a 1-hour drill. And then Thursday we compete. Coach Manning does all the warm-ups. Which is, we delegate things as much as we can with the coaching staff. And I heard an interview one time or podcast from Jim Jackson, who was the head coach at Apple Valley when they were winning state all the time. And he approached his coaching staff like a football staff, and that you have your running backs coach, you have your receivers coach, you have your quarterbacks coach. And then I've tried to emulate that with, certain jobs that coaches have and certain techniques and parts of practice they're involved in. So that everybody has a role, and psychologically getting more out of your staff. And then everyone's, more involved and kind of has their specialty too. But then Thursday, compete, warm up. And then like usually we try, if we're home, we'll try and run bike matches after matches, try and stretch the conditioning of the guys more. And then Friday is usually pretty laid back. Friday, usually there's a game. It's called Game Friday. The games we used to play were this crazy game called Towel Tag. That was an invention of Coach Troy Brown. They whip these towels around, and I don't know, we kind of got away from that. And then now they love playing slapback. And then sometimes they play handball, which is same game that the Olympic team plays in Penn State and whatnot. They take 2 steps and they kind of have fun for, 10 minutes. Then you get a drill out of them, get them down to 8 and get them feeling good. And then you're back on the bus the next day at 5:30 or 6 in the morning and go through the whole day, and then come home and try and be a dad and husband a little bit.
Right.
So that's kind of like the routine of the week. It's 14-week season, and you live for it. It's fun. It's kind of like you're going to go really fast, but can you hang on? And it's the thrill of it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You know, you talk about being dad there, you know, and I know it was one of the exciting times is that your kids were we had a wrestling meet that night. I think it was on a Wednesday night. It was your two kids' birthday. And so I can't think of their names, Sean and then
Sean and Jillian.
Jillian, yeah, super neat, a lot of fun, and they certainly enjoyed it.
Yep. So Valentine's Day, state wrestling. So that doesn't exist in my relationship because you're always focused on getting guys ready for state or districts or wherever. And then my wife's birthday is usually on a Thursday somehow. We're always competing. And then the kid's birthday is during wrestling season too. So, you know, it's just the way it works out.
Right.
What's your favorite meet or event tournament that's not state?
Well, it used to be Battle Waterloo, but we don't go there anymore. That was always fun. I think I really enjoy going to the Williamsburg tournament. At the end of the year, you get 5 duels. Their head coach and I've known him since I was in high school. He coached my high school coach. A lot of people don't know that. Eckenrod, I think he's one of the greatest coaches and people there is in the state. And I like seeing the guys get 5 matches. The tournament's well run. We get out there at a decent time. And, you know, it's kind of like a final tune-up. We used to go to the Clinton tournament, which was an absolute grinder. 26 teams one day. And some of your guys would be beat out by 10:30. So I like seeing everybody get 5 matches. And, of course, I really do enjoy going to Walkie Northwest and seeing the elite 3A competition. You're wrestling the best of the best down there, which is, you know, kind of like state duels. I think we wrestled 3 state duels teams all down there this year. So that's you know, you got to have a growth mindset going into that, but that's been a good change too.
Yeah. You know what, you know, as we look maybe I'm jumping the gun on this one here, but the scoring this year, you know, we've been really seeing a lot more tech falls and a lot of that stuff is just really added to it, I feel.
It is interesting. There's a lot more conversation in the corner. If people are ever watching wrestling, I suggest you watch the corner and the conversation's going on, because usually at about 45 seconds out, you're thinking, what are we going to do? Are we going down? Because that 4-point near falls, that changes everything. Or then you might score one, maybe they take you down, then you can't go down. And there's a lot more conversation in the corner. And there's a lot more pressure on that decision. If you're deferring, or if you're going to go down, or if you're going to go neutral, there's tons of conversation. And so, you know, it's there's a lot more that goes into it, and they're trying to scout your opponents, know what they're good at. So those are really interesting conversations in the corner and what's going on.
Do you think, you know, you've seen a change in more people choosing like neutral or top versus bottom compared
100%.
to previous years? Yeah.
It used to be automatic. You're going down, and you still have to be ready to go down, because if you're in a state quarterfinals and you have 2 ranked guys and then they go down and get their point, and then you're losing 1-0 in the 3rd period, you have to be able to go down and get your point. You have to. And so some people don't agree with that, but you have to be able to go down and get out in those situations. But definitely we're going neutral a lot more often. If we don't feel really confident in our bottom, we're not going to go down and maybe subject ourselves to the Clinton Cradle or the Lenmar Wing, or, you know, whatever, something like that. Definitely a lot of conversation going into that, and also how the match is going. And then sometimes we leave it up to the guys too, you know, like, hey, you know, the situation, where are you feeling? You know, if you're feeling like you can almost get there. If you're feeling like you can get out, then go down. And that's, you know, treating them like an adult and being a man.
So one thing, Paul, I want to tell you, like, you really, you know, Paul's the first timer to the podcast, didn't even know this existed. So I really do encourage you to go back the last couple of weeks. We talked a lot more wrestling than I thought we would, but you know, one of our conversations was just the guys and how those new edge of the mat rules, right, where you're keeping that foot in and you're still trying to score. Just the ability of some of those better guys to use the edge of the mat to their advantage. It's been kind of neat to see, especially down at that like district wrestling tournament. Just saw so much edge of the mat wrestling where, you know, before it was just boom, we're out, we'll go back to the center. But from a fan, that was fun to watch.
I think wrestling's more exciting now. I think the point system's changed everything. Used to be that, and with, you know, the edge of the mat, there's more points scored out of there. Used to be back in the day, back in the 90s when I wrestled, if you got up 5-0 on someone, the match was over. You know, you were going to hold position, stall. Now with takedowns and near falls and edge of the mat and stalling's getting called quick, like points happen in a hurry. And I think it's been more fan friendly. So I think those are they're a good change. I wasn't sure what to make of it at the beginning. Like, all right, well, it is what it is. Let's see what happens. And I think it's been a good change. Been exciting for the sport.
It's a much faster scoring pace. There's not very many low scoring matches. One thing with that though is keeping with a lot more Tech Falls and majors. Do you think they'll revisit and say Tech Fall now has to be an 18-point difference?
Oh, I think
or a major of a 9.
Yeah, I was just looking at the stats last week, trying to wrap up everything and think about the wall that's got to get changed. I have to add some new categories in the wrestling room. For those who don't know, we've got all records on the walls. 4-point near falls. I gotta add that as a category. There's match points. Braden Burt's records might be coming down. So if Braden Burt's out there, sorry, Braden. These kids are scoring a lot of points now, so it's just different.
Yeah.
But it's changes, whatever. Like, have an open mind and run with it and try and embrace it and move forward.
How do you and I was listening to it on KMCHM. Guys just do a fantastic job, earbuds in and hunkering down and listening to that all day long. And I guess one of the things I talk about my nephew's son, David Tyson, and them guys getting close to the edge of the mat there, and kind of thinking that it's over with, but you just really got to keep on going.
Yeah, you can't stop until the whistle blows, that's for sure. And then you have to get into the mindset of the refs, trying to get them on your side. Number one, as a coach, if you can be good with coaches, or the coaches have a good relationship with the refs, and then you're working the refs during the match, but you can't take them off because you can't make it personal. And that's how I try and approach it. Because if you do take them off, usually they're going to go the other way. The biggest thing you can do is trying to get them to talk. If you can at least get the refs, if there's 2 of them to talk, you got a chance of getting something overturned. And we had that back in 2017. Braden Burt had 2 calls. I think they're both in the quarterfinals against a kid from Prairie. And if you can get the assistant to talk to the main ref, you got a chance. But then, like, the thing about working the refs too is it happens. That conversation is going to happen if there's a break in the action, if someone goes out of bounds. The problem is when they don't go out of bounds, trying to get those conversations to happen to get a call changed. And of course, if you can take them off, they'll go the other way. Then it becomes an ego struggle, and usually you lose.
Yeah, and then you lose them.
So that's kind of my philosophy on that.
With the state wrestling, you qualified 10 to go down there. Is a great experience for everyone involved. Is that, especially being the first session on Wednesday, is that too long to be in a hotel? You guys went down Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You're down there Saturday. Is that an adjustment?
It's an adjustment. And when I first started coaching, I think it was the same. I remember we left when Kevin Cleason won state. We left on a Tuesday, and it was one day, 1 session a day, whatnot. And then it changed. And I used to try and get used to it. Unfortunately, we've got a great staff. Schuler and Kirkbrick brought video games with, so the guys are playing a lot of video games. I'm not a big video gamer. And then Coach Manning's just a fun guy to be with. Bless his personality. He's just fun. He's a goofball. He can get super intense and coach really hard. So I think that's really good for the guys to be able to dial down and like distract themselves. But they all have different needs, and so trying to meet everybody's needs, what everybody wanted to eat. Some guys could eat, some guys couldn't. One night we took them out to Outback, and then some of the other guys couldn't eat, and then trying to accommodate all those needs. But we actually kept busy. I mean, we would leave the hotel at 6, weigh-ins at 7. The coaches, like, people, what do we do? Well, when you get down there, every coach has a job. One coach is going to stay with the guys, make sure their weight's good, to sit with them. The other coaches go and get base camps established. So 2 different warm-up areas underneath the tunnels. You go and get a base camp 2 established. You get all the chairs. You got to fight the Southeast Polk guys for chairs and stuff like that, like under the tunnels, because they've got a huge entourage, and we're trying to make sure we've got enough area for our guys. Then another coach goes into Wells Fargo. Usually that coach is the first one in there, warm up in front of mat 6, so they get those chairs so they're in front of our fans. And then that takes until about 8 o'clock when everyone gets out and gets warming up. And then you've had your 10 different guys who are going to have all the coaches with them. So you got to split up coaching assignments, because you got to make sure no one's left behind and they're in the tunnel on their own. And so trying to juggle all those things. But is it too long? It's pretty long. It's a lot of money for the schools. It's a lot of money for families. But I think the state was at a point where they were going to either add a division and have 4 classes for wrestling, or get more kids at the state tournament, and they got more kids at the state tournament. So that's, I think, what happened.
You know, they used to have the state, correct me if I'm wrong, but did they have the state duels that Wednesday, the team duels on the Wednesday, and then the individual tournaments after?
So back in 09, we made the state duels. It was the week after, which is how like Illinois does it. And then they changed it shortly thereafter, which was horrible. So when we made it in 2017 and 2019, you got your guys chasing individual titles and success, and then you gotta mount up and have 3 hard matches the day before the state tournament begins. And that puts the coaches in a tough position. And that's, you know, you're trying to do what's best for your guys, but you're trying to win the duels too. It's a tough position to be in. And so I think I like it better now how it is. I think the best system is the old way to do the state duels a week after, but that'll never happen just due to venues and contracts and all that type of stuff.
Right. You know, and you took an army this year of 10, you know, and I mean, you ever just think when you were, you know, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and you're trying to see how things are going to play out, you know, and you've had some injuries and you got, you know, some things, people getting dinged up, and you know, and all of a sudden, you know, at the end of the day, you got 10 going. I mean, it's got to be just ecstatic.
So it was, the January was tough. We had, I don't know, the injuries. I mean, our technically you're drilling, you're always trying to get better there in your practices. You're trying to make sure the guys are in shape, but you're not trying to overtrain them. Make sure they're healthy and in shape and wanting to wrestle. And then we just had the injuries that killed kind of the January dual season. I think a highlight of the year was we beat Iowa City Liberty with 6 starters out. And if someone would have looked on our coaching, like the coaches, we felt like we won a state duel. We were so excited because so much went into that with the guys and whatnot. And then you kind of had to swallow some of our pride at the end of the year. The regional duels, we had a lot of guys injured, and like seeing what they go through with their injuries, walking around like, you know, 85-year-old grandpas and ankles and knees and shoulders and everything else. And then to get them healthy, and then to get them to continue to improve, you know, like Isaiah Streif, he had a great district. He tech-falled a kid who'd beat him in 2 previous duels, you know, at the end, and him among everybody else, they continue to get better. I felt like as the season wore on, and we did get everybody healthy at the end for districts. And I thought the max was 10, maybe 11 had we had a really good day. And so to get everybody, usually that never happens. Usually my equation is you take your total possible, you divide it by 2, and that's what you get. And so I thought 10 to 11 was the total max. And so to get 10 out that was a pretty good day. I was pretty excited and pretty grateful, but then it's a quick turnaround, and then the state tournament and everything else, and trying to scout opponents and whatnot. But the coaching staff, we were very happy with 10.
Yeah. And I'm listening to the KMCH guys, you know, and they were talking, and they were making the comment of always seeing 1 or 2 people out wrestling with a shoulder sling on, you know, just it's, you know, apparently ramping up, you know, and that is, you know, what is up with that? Do we know? I mean,
you know, if you go back to the 90s when I competed, I don't think I ever saw a shoulder brace, and I never heard of someone tearing their labrum, not even in college. I don't ever remember anyone tearing labrums. I don't know. Maybe it's people are doing more of everything. Sport specialization happens at younger ages and more often, and maybe it's strength. You know, I don't think we lifted back in the day. You know, I think you pretty much took wrestling season off. There was push-ups and pull-ups and that stuff. And I don't know, during football, we didn't lift that much, but now I have no idea. But everyone's got a brace on, it seems like. And it's just the world we're in as a coach and as an adult. You just try and keep up with everything's going on and move forward. It's an interesting question on the shoulder braces because everybody's got them. You're right.
I know you, that one heavyweight down there, I think Garrett wrestled. He had what? He had both shoulder. I mean, he looked like a bionic man. He had so many braces on him.
Yeah.
But
they thought he had shoulder pads. They were saying, I think he's got a shoulder pad, football shoulder pad underneath there.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. It'd be another question for athletic trainers, I suppose.
One question I do have for you, Coach, I guess, you know, you talk sports specialization, and you talk, you know, you've talked a little bit about the youth program. I guess, you know, explain to me as a parent, like, hey, I want to get my kid into wrestling. When do I know it's time? Like, what do you look for? You've seen it. You've been around the block a lot. You've came through the ranks. Like just kind of elaborate on the youth program a little bit.
Because there's a million different ways to find success in wrestling, and I've seen them all work and I've seen them all fail. Myself, I grew up, my dad was a coach. It was a very moderate approach growing up, and wrestling was just part of our life, and it was something we did. And then there's a lot of hero worship with my brother being older than me. And then as I aged, I just kept getting into it more and more, and I've never gotten tired of it in all my life. You're always ready for a break at the end of the season. That's my story. I've seen stories where kids start wrestling sophomore year and they make it to state their senior year and they fall in love with it. Coach Schuler, we'll just use my staff as an example. He did not start wrestling until junior high, and then he got really into it. And he did a lot of baseball when he was younger, and that kind of fell out. And then he was a couple times state medalist, and he had a very good college career as well. Coach Kirprick was, state champ as a little kid. I remember seeing him win state in Cedar Rapids when I was a young assistant, and he was around the little Bobcat program. And then, he wrestled all the way through it. And then Coach Manny he did it when he was a kid, but he didn't get really into it until 8th grade. And then he had a very good career and wrestled 4 years in college. So, it's just different for everybody. Aaron Costello, state champ for us in 2017. His dad, multiple time All-American at Laura's. I think he backed off in 8th grade. Then once Aaron made the decision to get good, then they were, going to tournaments and doing everything. Max Line was good forever. Braden Burt, state champ. I remember meeting him when they moved to town, and his dad said he's the lover. He's not a fighter. And then he saw his brother win a state title for Wahlert, and then he decided to get good, and he got really good. And so it's different for every family. System can be different. Different pressures put on kids, different situations and factors. So it's interesting analyzing it all. But how to get involved? Come to our youth camp if you're starting out. That's fun. Our coaches run it. It's lots of basics, and we finish with ice cream at the end, and then we go to the pool. The Dyersville pool is kind of what we've evolved into. So you get 50 kids going to the pool with their friends, so it's a social thing. And then our system, we've got a 3-tiered system for our program. We have pre-K and K that do about a month and a half, 1 day a week. They end in Christmas, and that's run by David Demmer. And then we have Matt McCarthy runs 1st and 2nd grade in our girls' room, which is a huge shout out to our administration for getting us 2 rooms. Because now that you do have 2 rooms, both our 1st and 2nd graders and our 3rd through 8th graders, they can start practice at 6 and you're not getting home at 9 o'clock. And our 1st and 2nd graders go with Matt McCarthy, and they've got their last week of practice coming up here before Super Pee Wee State. And then our 3rd through 8th graders, they go from 6 to 7:30, and they go twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays, and that's run by Dennis Hall and Will Kelly, and a bunch of parents always walking around too. So I think the best way to start out is to get them into ice cream camp, and then you stick in the system. And some people go, there's clubs now everywhere. There's, youth sports. There's a lot of money to be made for the people running the clubs, from baseball to wrestling to, athletic training or weightlifting or whatever. There's people that go to different clubs and whatnot, but our system's pretty good. We had 4 medalists this weekend at youth state, and I think 18 or 19 kids that qualified. So, So trying to compete when most people, a lot of school programs have given up and they just go to the clubs. And I'm really proud that we have a really strong school community program as well.
Yeah, Matt Davis, I think he's involved in that too, isn't he?
Yep, Matt Davis is definitely a ringleader. I call him the younger version of Aaron Birds. That's what I call him. And trying to get him to step up and do different things, which we're very grateful for his leadership and just the help of everyone else as well.
Yeah, one thing I love is, especially at the junior high level, right? Like these kids, they're getting pressure from all outside. Oh, you got to start picking sports. And I'm like, you know what? No, they're in junior high. Let them wrestle. Let them play basketball. Like they don't have to make any decisions till high school. Let them be a kid. And it's just, that's one thing I love about Western Dubuque. You can really just let the kids be kids. And then, hey, in high school, you'll figure it out. Do what you want to do. So
we've got a great junior high staff too. And I think you're right there. But Coach Penner, Derek Hush, Dylan Ganson, they're all fantastic mentors. And I think at West Dubuque, we're very lucky, and I've been around for 21 years. We have a great, I call them wolf pack of men in the middle school, that are teachers and coaches and just great people for our young kids to look up to. You got a person like Brennan Kirprick at the middle school teaching PE. That guy's he's a life influencer. Derek Hush, Corey Davidson, just a really strong group of men down there. And I'm really happy to see that. It wasn't always that way. And, years and years, we didn't have that. Now there's great teaching staff and great culture there.
Yeah.
One question. Sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
Go ahead, Kyle.
I guess one thing I want to know, Paul, what's one thing, let's talk outside of wrestling. What do you love to do in the summer? What are you excited for? Wrestling's over with. I mean, give us a little insight.
Today, I don't have many hobbies. I don't know what that means about me, but it is what it is. I don't golf. So I went to Top Golf over state, and they were all out there, and it was cold, and I was stressed out about the matches. And they all wanted to see me swing the golf club. And I was like, I think I got to go to the bathroom. So I went inside and I just watched pro wrestling and tried to figure out any way to beat some of the guys we had the next day. And then they were like, we can't leave till you swing the club. So it's pretty pathetic when I swing. And, so that is what it is. But I don't golf. I just like to spend time with my family. And I like to exercise. Like today I went to the Y for about 2 hours and was able to exercise and sweat and, get tired and sit in the sauna, listen to podcasts actually. So I look forward to listening to podcasts in the sauna. That's what I like to do. So I'll be tuning into this. And then I went home and whatever, did the fundraiser. So hobbies, just exercise, trying to listen and relax, look forward to the season. And there's always wrestling, and we'll start our spring stuff in another couple of weeks with Dennis Hall coming in a day a week. And then we'll run stuff in the summer. We'll have a youth camp. That'll be 3 days. And then
in the summer, like June or
July. In the summer, usually the second or third week. And then we'll have summer practice. I'm going to have Kirprick run summer practice this summer once a week. And then we'll go to we're probably going to have it. I call it advanced technique. We'll bring in some West clinicians. I mean, wants to come in and, have a guy for UNI. I want to get a UNI guy in this summer. Never had one of them. Of course, we took our club, went on a charter bus there, and that was a fantastic experience to watch a dual meet. It was awesome. I think it was very influential and impactful for our kids. And then we'll go to team camp. So what do? I do a lot of wrestling, I guess. And last summer was training for an open water swim with my wife. She was a swimmer, and so she did a 3-mile swim in the middle of Lake Michigan, and I was training for half a mile. And so that was pretty much my summer, was just training. And then, kids' activities. My daughter's into swimming, and my son plays baseball and wrestles. And so there's just a lot of time with them, I guess.
Right. You live in Piasta there, so it's a nice little community, and he's got his friends and she's got her friends, and, it's kind of
trying to get home and see my family. My parents are 77 years old. My mom has post polio. And so, that is what it is. So, and I've got a brother who's 4 years older in Central Illinois too. He's a teacher and coach. So try and catch up with family and then see my sister too. I'm trying to get her to switch to West Dubuque. That's my goal, is get her kids to be Bobcats. So they're right on the border of Hempstead and West Dubuque. So we'll see what happens there.
What's her address? We'll just go get it. Go there and throw her in the bus and
so we'll keep working on that.
Yeah. Two things I want to talk about. We, the Mark Schwab has just got, seems like a really good dynasty, a really rich family type thing going on over there. I mean, it's just something he's built over the years, isn't it? It seems like it keeps getting better and better.
Oh, UNI wrestling, Schwab. Yeah. They got a pretty special culture in this day and age of NIL and transferring. They don't really transfer out of UNI. And I look at that, and I think that's a really special culture he's got. I've met him at a gas station, actually leaving state a couple of years ago, congratulated him on his season and whatnot. And then I emailed him in September when their schedule came out, maybe it was October. He got back to me right away and trying to line up a charter bus and how do we get tickets and whatnot. And then fortunately, Matt Lansing took that over and did just a fantastic job for us organizing that whole thing. And then I emailed him again the day that we were leaving. I said, FYI, we've got 50 kids and 80 tickets purchased. We're coming to support you guys, wrestle Oklahoma State. He emailed me back 10 minutes later. So I think he's a really down-to-earth person and someone you'd want your son wrestling for. I think that's a pretty special thing he's got going on.
Yeah. And then this women's wrestling we got coming up, and I mean, my daughter's in 8th grade, and we just finished up on Monday night. She's, I'm just going to say she's 16-0, and she's got a 14 pins, a tech fall, and a major.
Holy cow, that's exciting.
And so she said, hey, asked her about signing on the dotted line. You go, yeah, I'm doing it next year, So, I mean, it's just, it's got its own culture too, doesn't it? I mean,
it's incredible seeing the growth of women's wrestling. When it first started, I think, I don't know, all the years blend together. We had like 5 girls, and they practiced with us, and then we were in charge. And then what would be like Mondays, the coaches would split up the coaches. 2 coaches would go with the girls to a tournament on Monday, then 2 other coaches to go with the girls on a tournament on Friday, then turn around quick on Saturday. Of course, we're wrestling duels on Thursdays too. To see where it was then when we were just kind of hodgepodging things together to where it is now, where it's, the state tournament was sold out, I think 3 or 4 sessions. And then we've got the legend Coach Danner, who's going to come back for his 50th year of coaching. And just seeing the growth of women's wrestling. We've got almost 30 girls wrestling in the high school. We've got our, thankfully, supported administration, another wrestling room, which just gives gives the girls more opportunities to be involved and be part of a team. And there's nothing better than being part of a team. Just something special when you're part of something that's bigger and better than yourself.
Yeah. And I thought we had some fantastic crowds this year. Looking across the way and behind me, I thought that south side of that gymnasium was really ecstatic. It was good energy.
Great energy, great emotion, and something we try and do with our girls program and our guys programs have synergy as well. And so trying to keep separate programs but blend them together a little bit too, so they're supporting each other. And that's something I'm really proud of as a coach. If you look at any dual meet, the guys are there supporting the girls, and then the girls are supporting the guys, and there's 100 people on the bench and they're cheering each other on. And I think that's pretty special. And then we try and play the game together on Friday and then split after that. Or sometimes, maybe there's technique. I'll ask Coach Danner if he wants us to show anything with the girls, and just build some togetherness, which is important. You have 2 separate programs, but you want to bring things together. So our off season, we'll probably do a lot together in the off season, and make sure everyone feels like they're one team.
One thing I love about women's wrestling, you just never know what you're gonna see. I just you can have somebody in control, and then boom, just complete reversal. And I just love it. Like every move to me in women's wrestling seems like a big move, and it's fun to watch.
Well, they continue to get better. One of my teammates from college, his daughter, she took 2nd in California, which is a big deal. And technically the girls technically they're as good as the guys, like the technique and the flow and the understanding. First couple of years it wasn't that way, but now it's impressive just watching their understanding of the sport, like watching really good girls. Great wrestling is great wrestling. So I really enjoyed seeing that, which is fun.
The girls really get after it, and they have the built-in cheerleaders on the bench, and it's loud in there. If you go just to a girls duel, or the state tournament was just, it was crazy. I mean, there was girls that probably never watched wrestling, and then their classmate qualified, and now they're bringing more people to it. So just talk about the first state non-sanctioned tournament that Waverly put on. They had just a couple hundred, or maybe less than 100 girls, and then the next year they had 300, then they had 700, and it just kind of picked up from there. And I'm not sure, Coach, how many girls are involved with the wrestling in the state of Iowa now?
I want to say that we're over 2,000. I want to say it's 2,000 plus, and I think there's between six. We're in the 6,000s for the guys. So, we had 40 some guys out this year, and I think they were upper 20s for our girls program. And I think they might hit 30 next year. So, it's just great to see that people are involved. When you look at all the data and all the research, the more activities kids are involved in, the better their GPAs are, the better all the mental health stuff is. And it's good to see all the girls get involved in,
well, it's great to see those families that have never been exposed to it. Now they're there for the other duels, and so it's getting almost doubling your eyes on the sport of wrestling. So that's a great thing.
100%, and that's a conversation that you have to talk about too with the administration. Is how we're going to run this. Are we going to run it one mat for each, or those get to be late nights? Or do you go 2 mats the whole time so kids can get home before midnight? I think we wrestled Iowa City West this year. We had just a really tough long duel, and and the girls had a really tough duel, and then we got home at like 11:45, because wrestling one mat. So it's grown so much, and the level of the technicality of the sport is improving so much too with the girls. Like there's more matches going the full 6 minutes, and so it'll be interesting to see how that continues to change and how you make decisions on all those types of things.
Right. And I haven't seen any female officials lately, but I'm sure they're coming out, and everything, they're got to be coming, I'm sure.
Oh, 100%.
To be involved.
And just with the amount of women that are wrestling in college, UD's got probably 10 or 12 girls that are wrestling. Wartburg's got a big roster. Grandview's got a ton of girls. Iowa's going to have girls. And just seeing them get into the coaching ranks and into the teaching. And, me, I worshipped my high school football coach. That was a big reason I became a coach, and teachers, just I kind of worshipped him. So hopefully we're going to have those girls coming back down the road, being teachers and coaches and mentors for the future.
Yeah. I don't know, just to kind of break off a little bit, you have any you like to watch any baseball teams or any football, or what are your flavors there on any of that? Or
college football, yeah, Big Ten. That's usually something I like to watch. I'm not a big pro football guy. I'll watch the Super Bowl. Usually I make a big thing of buffalo chicken dip for Super Bowl. That's kind of one thing I like to do. And then my kids, I guess, really like that too. And my wife does too. And then, but Hawkeyes, yeah, try and support them. And baseball, not so much. I played in right field. We all know what that means. And my career ended in 8th grade, and I couldn't hit the ball. And then if I did hit it, it was always a foul ball. Then you had all this pressure put on you. And so when I was in college, before we go up to practice, just for fun, all the baseball guys would be, throwing heat. I'm like, put me in that cage. Let's see what happens. And of course, it was, a joke because those balls are going fast. It's pretty scary in there,
Yeah.
And I would swing, and of course I couldn't hit anything, but just fun, So I appreciate the athleticism and the skill that goes into every sport, whether it be baseball. There's so much technique and skill that's accumulated over time, or swimming is incredibly technical. And of course, I relate swimming to like lifting weights and suffocating. So when I was training last summer, it was like you're suffocating and you're getting all pumped up. And of course, my technique wasn't good. So I just appreciate, all of the sports. So it's kind of fun to be a fan now that the season is kind of over.
Right.
My favorite Paul Cleary story was, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 years ago, Tyler Lown calls me and says, "Hey, we're hosting this MVC volleyball tournament, and I don't have any line judges." He goes, "You think you could officiate?" And I said, "You know what, Tyler?" I said, "You've helped me out enough." I said, "I'll help you out." He goes, "Well, I just need somebody who can make a call." And I was like, "In or out, just make a call." And I look over, and yep, over in the other corner is Paul Cleary. So he must have got the same speech from Tyler as I did. And the best part about it is nobody was saying nothing to that guy because they didn't, So
that was actually, I did that in college. So it was the worst job I ever had in my entire life. And I thought it'd be good, but when I was a GA at Loris, I had to be in charge of the scoring for volleyball.
Oh man!
And I didn't know the game, but that was my job because I was a GA. And having the coaches yell at you and who scored what point and libero this or that. And then before that, I was a line judge and just trying not to get the call wrong. So always trying to appreciate and help out Tyler. Just do whatever I can to help out. But yeah, I had to brush up on the rules. Kind of like me bartending today for the fundraiser for the DuPont family. It was different shoes to be in, and just doing the best you can.
It was fun. I had a lot of history with volleyball, but never at that, varsity level. And it was good volleyball that night. And I'm just like, the speed of the game, boy, a little different than what I was used to. So
yeah, just appreciating the athleticism and the skill. And back to what I was saying earlier, that's what's kind of fun just about being a fan, is just watching the technique and skill and athleticism in every sport. So I really appreciated watching that and seeing our girls compete too.
So what would you, if you were not a teacher, coach, what was your next passion or thought process as a career?
Well, it's interesting. When I was a kid, I used to look at wrestling magazines and just think about if I was a coach, what the singles would look like. And all I ever wanted to do was be a teacher and a coach. When I was in 6th grade, I got tired of English class, and then we were in the library, and I was like, I don't want to read about poems and stuff. So I went off into the stacks and I was reading books on Rome and Greece and the Spartans. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And then I remember getting yelled at, and my, middle name might've been used or something. And I had to go to the principal's office, and I didn't want to learn about poems and haikus. And I wanted to learn about what I wanted to learn about. And I wanted to be a teacher and a coach. So that's all I really thought about. But had I not been a teacher and a coach, I guess I probably would have gone into the business world and sales and, talking to people and have gone that route. But then I think had I ever done that, all I would have thought about was being in a wrestling room.
Right.
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 I just love being in the wrestling room. Right. We have a tradition, and we started it years ago. The last day before the state tournament's pretty special. And it's light, and we do this muscle relaxation thing, and then we put some candles in the wrestling room, and I guess it's out there now, and then we everyone has to say their favorite memory from the season. And it's really interesting seeing what everybody says. And I've been saying the same thing for 20 years. I just like going to practice every day. And so that's kind of what I feel comfortable at. So if I weren't a teacher and a coach, I'd probably be in the business world. And then all I would have thought about was being a teacher and a coach. Uh-huh. So I don't know.
Circle back around.
Yeah.
What I guess what are you going to do here in the next couple of weeks? You had this last week here to catch some rest, and after being down at state for basically 5 days, straight and all the mental stuff that goes with that. I mean, it's just got to be super tiring.
It was exhausting. Yeah, the injuries, trying to get everybody back and trying to be competitive, and then you have to balance out your own ego as a competitor to win each duel with trying to get what's best for the kids too. And sometimes they're different. And so like at the end of our season this year, we made the decision to rest guys and try and get them healthy for the district that we wanted and that we did have. So that was tough. But what am I going to do in the future? Well, during the last couple of weeks, you wake up at pretty much, I'd wake up at 3:30 in the morning, 4 days a week, worrying about this or that or everything else. And then you go on about your day. So I'll sleep, exercise, wrap stuff up, have our awards banquet, spend time with my family, allow my wife to have a career and be all into that instead of, like my kids, sometimes they're in wrestling practice, they're in my classroom, or you're trying to figure out what's going to happen to your children while your wife's got her job and whatnot. So I can take the kids and help out with all their activities. And, I really enjoy trying to exercise more and be healthy. My college wrestling coach had a stroke yesterday, and it's bad. So you hear things like that, and you want to take care of yourself more so you can be around forever.
Right.
That's kind of my thought process.
Aaron, Kyle, you got anything?
I was just going to see if Coach wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit about Loris Wrestling. They are going to be sending 7 guys to the national tournament. They were just short of taking out Wartburg too by 2.5 points, I think it was. So if they want to talk a little bit about what they got going on there, and a couple West Dubuque alumni are coaching at the D3 level.
Yeah, it was exciting. I actually went to that regional yesterday. It was either youth state or the regional, and I really just wanted to sit down and be a fan. And some of my old teammates went, and we just watched Loris and watched wrestling. And I just needed some time to unwind, to be honest with you. And they have done a special job. Jaron Glosser, the coach there, has done a great job. To get 7 out of that regional was awesome. And they had 8 in 2020, and I think they would have won it. That was canceled due to COVID. And then going back to 2003, my last year, we had 7 too. And so I think he's got a great culture. He's got a great staff. He's got Chase Linsman, who was a national champ at Upper Iowa. He's got Tyler Dow, who wrestled at Wisconsin. And then he's got Aaron Costello, of course, our former state champion Hawkeye. And he's got Rick Healy, who's a teammate of mine with him. I'm probably missing someone else. Oh, and then his new assistant who wrestled at Wisconsin and was an All-American for Northern State. And, he's got a great staff, and to see them get the most qualifiers out was just awesome. So really proud for the area, because that helps us, because we get, coaches, and you get people coming from the colleges who want to be involved. And that's just really cool to see. And University of Dubuque, I think they had 3 qualifiers too. So kudos to them, because now we've got a relationship with Coach Dennis Hall, running our youth practices on Mondays and helping out. And, and then Jimmy Gatto, coaching at Co, former state place winner for us. Seeing what I think they had 4 qualifiers. And that just alludes to the toughness of Division III wrestling. There are some Division I transfers that transferred out of Iowa, and they're wrestling. Some of those guys didn't make it, it's super elite level of wrestling, and it's just good to see that that level continues to grow and get better.
I was there working on some equipment in the weight room there that one day, and I think you guys were actually even to go to Iowa City Liberty, and you were in there mending the mat. You were in there gluing what needed to be glued back together. So you had, the wrestling room wasn't getting used that night, and you guys were gone, and so
it is the mats. It's weird. They don't make them like they used to. I've gone through 2 cans of paint and getting on my hands and knees and trying to fix them because they're $17,000 to buy. And then I was talking to the Resolite rep, Jay Groth, who's, again, good coaching friend. And he's an Ankeny Centennial head coach, works for Resolite, and he's got all sorts of coaches complaining about him. Like I said, we're not going to buy another Resolite. Like, they don't make them like they used to. And he's got those complaints going all over the place. But yeah, trying to keep those mats in shape, and we're real happy with the wrestling room. We've got double thick mats, so you wouldn't know it by the injuries we had this year, but it's super soft in there because we've got 2 older mats that are underneath that are 20 and 30 years old, and then 2 of the newer mats I guess those mats are probably 5 or 6 years old now on top. And then I try and go and patch up any tears in them once or twice a week for 15 or 20 minutes just to make sure we have those as long as we can.
Mm-hmm. What how was it as far as skin disease this year? Where did that kind of all fall in the whole?
Oh, wrestling being contact sport, you're always dealing with something. And we wash the mats a lot. You always wash them after youth practice. The managers take care of stuff, but probably we had some ringworm that was annoying, but nothing more annoying than that. So it was average, I guess. And I always walk around with defense soap, wipes, and we do everything we can. But being a contact sport, it's gonna be something you're gonna deal with, which is part of the game, I guess, as we say.
Right.
I wish it wasn't, but it is what it is. And back in my day, we didn't have a wrestling room. I always tell these stories so the guys appreciate it. We had to roll the mats out every day. So there was gym class, and then there'd be dirt and everything else on the floor. Then you roll the mat up. Of course, then the gym floor is going into the mat. You'd have to wash the mats every day and then wait for them to dry and then practice and whatnot. So it's a pretty good situation we have, and feel pretty grateful.
Super cool. And Tyler's done I think a great job and very proactive with a lot of things to really make everything go really pretty smooth.
And then we've got the air cleaner, purifies the air, and we have a dehumidifier, and then we've got a bleach towel or soap towel, and if you go out of the room you wipe it down, and it's the cleanest room in the entire school every day right before practice. and then you get 50 kids sweating in there, and then you get 100. Well, let's see, then you get another 60 little bobcats in there 2 times a week from November to basically now, and the room gets used. As we say, it's a wrestling culture, and I think that's the biggest reason I stayed in Iowa was the wrestling culture. I always thought I'd go back to Illinois, and the dream was to take over high school with my brother and teach and coach and whatnot. And then I just came to West Dubuque because of Tom Danner, met him. He encouraged me to apply for a job, and for me it was interview experience. And then I interviewed. They called me 6 hours later. Felt like a good opportunity, and I took it. So it's like the crazy butterfly effect that happens in life. Wrestling in Iowa and the culture in Iowa is great. And if you're here, you don't realize it, but growing up in Illinois, like the pro sports is a big deal. Like going to the Bears game, big deal. Going to, support, and watch the Bulls, that's a big deal, right? In Iowa, we don't have that. So it's about the high schools and the colleges. You got the Hawks, you got the Cyclones, it's a big deal. And you have your community. And I think West Dubuque is very special in that regard, and that all the small towns pulled together, and that was exemplified today. Jay Hafel and the Newman family kind of organized the event for the DuPont family, and it was people out the door from 11:30, and I left at 5:30, and there's still people out the door. and showing support. And then that support comes for the sports. And that's probably what I love most about teaching and coaching at West Dubuque, is seeing that and support. That's probably my favorite thing.
Who would have, just going back to like a little bit of old time there, who would have interviewed you at that time for the job? Who was the,
let's see.
Who were the people, I guess?
Oh man.
I mean, like
the superintendent,
like Brian maybe, or
superintendent was Bev Gert. Harold Knutson had just retired. He came back. The assistant principal, his name was Bill, I think. Principal was Sue Yelich. And then I was like a young teacher. There was 13 or 14 of us that came in that year. And then, Jerry Ross, Tom Kilberg, I got to teach with him for 1 year. And that I was really fortunate that I got to teach side by side, like Jerry Ross, Tom Kilberg, and Danner. And then seeing Ross and Danner and how they coached, how they taught, and then how they got through the good seasons. And of course, the hardest thing is getting through the bad seasons, because, those are tough. And you have ups and downs, but I learned a lot from those guys, and just appreciate them as friends and mentors too.
Super cool. Well, guys, got a few minutes here for a speed round. Anything you want to talk about?
No, I guess, first of all, Paul, thanks for coming on, chatting with us. One thing I was able to take part of, I believe it was Monday or Tuesday night, we hosted Bellevue and Bellevue Marquette down at the high school for a sub-state basketball game. And I want to tell you what an electric atmosphere that was. Good luck to Bellevue Marquette down to the state tournament. But boy, it was sure fun hosting an event like that. I think we had a choir concert down there that night, and we had, I think, 1,000 to 1,200 people in that gym. So that was sure a fun night.
Yeah, it was super, super exciting, and usually when I start doing the announcements of who's playing who, I was going to say the second team, but I had to stop because the Bellevue Comets wanted to make sure that everybody knew that they were there and in full force. And then, then you, of course, you announce Marquette Catholic Defenders, and then it's another rah, 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 so I wasn't quite used to that, because usually you just kind of go and take off. But yeah, it was, man, what a great energy, just super, super cool energy. And I wish we could bring that to some of our, not so much the wrestling side, but the basketball side was.
Yeah, that was a fun night.
It was.
It's great to see when those kids, growing up, especially like Marquette and Bellevue, they're neighbors, and they play, baseball together, grow up, with each other. So that's a real cool experience for them. And just really good for the community to have two programs that are successful. But that'd be, like you said, like Kyle said, is they brought a full house, and just kind of an electric atmosphere.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then Tyler said, he does make a good show out of this. And it's like, okay, we're gonna, and then we get in there and the table is I don't know what, 25 or 30 feet long, and talking about getting walkie-talkies from one end to the other, and I'm throwing out binoculars, so usually most of the time we don't have all that table all set up, but it was certainly filled up with 3 people keeping book and a couple people running the board, and then we got a couple media people and Jared and myself, and so yeah, it was a lot of fun. So, well, guys, I guess this wraps up this week's of the Don't You Know podcast. You can, of course, find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and you can also watch the video of this on YouTube. So for Kyle Ganzen, Aaron Birds, and the coach, Paul Cleary, this is Lyle Tyson, and so long for Don't You Know.
Well, Paul, you got about 6 episodes